Time is slipping away at unprecedented rates today. Years is turned into months, months into weeks, weeks into days, days into hours. It is ridiculous how fast time is going by. And I've been pounding my head against the brick wall trying to figure out what exactly is happening, because it seems like something shifted after 2000 and then something shifted again after 2020. I am not the only person that has experienced this. There are millions of people that have experienced this same thing. And it's going faster. And for the longest time, I was like, man, it must be CERN. It must be some sort of Mandela effect type thing, this weird space-time continuum's being interrupted, or we're in some sort of alternate universe. That's what I thought for the longest time, and I still kind of think that. But I actually found something very intriguing the other day, and that is the fact that there's some researchers, actually they were psychologists, and they discovered that there is a very real phenomenon that is happening that is causing time to speed up. It is causing us to lose time. It's very crazy. All right, so the thing that shifted after 2000, it wasn't clocks. It was our brain. That is what shifted. That is what's driving a lot of this. But it's not just our brain. It's our brain's perception of time. And a lot of that comes down to technology. Social media, the internet, constant scrolling. All of these things have our attention. And the problem is that when your mind is so overwhelmed and we're being so inundated by stuff, which we are 24/7, if you really think about it, from the moment we crawl out of bed, we're on our phone, or we're going to work, or we're watching TV, or the mainstream media's barking at us. There's just something that has our attention, because everything in the modern world is fighting for our attention. That is the reality that we live in. So when that happens, what these researchers found is that your mind can no longer hold on to memories. It doesn't store memories in the same way. So that causes days to blend together. It causes months and years to blend together. Time basically passes us by, and we don't remember anything. All the days and all the hours and all the time that we have basically becomes meaningless, because our mind believes that nothing important has happened, and it just skips over stuff. And this is especially profound for those of us that grew up back before the internet and before social media and before all of this technology, because we remember what it was like to have actual time. We remember what it was like to be grounded in the present moment and to exist in the world and to remember things, to actually have, I would say, meaning. Because when we went through life back then, it felt like everything had meaning. We were very able to enjoy the simple things in life and just be present in the moment and enjoy being present in the moment. But today we can't do that, because our mind doesn't hang on to those things. It sees those things as meaningless because it is being pulled towards the things that we are telling our mind is meaningful. But it's completely backwards, because the stuff that we're focusing on is not the stuff that we should be focusing on. It is actually destroying our minds in this sense, and it is ridding us of one of our most valuable assets, and that is time. By us partaking in modern society and keeping our faces stuck in our phones and in the screens, and allowing ourselves to become overwhelmed by technology and overwhelmed by all of this stuff that's being pushed out to us, we are essentially willingly giving up our time. And the reason the year 2000 and 2020 had such profound impacts on our minds is because, if you really think about it, the year 2000 was around the time that technology really started creeping into our lives. That's when a lot of people started getting cell phones. That's when the personal electronic devices started to really take hold. And our attention started to be pulled in many different directions, and mostly in the direction of technology. And that shift really occurred in the year 2020, because that's when the pandemic happened. And when that happened, people didn't go out as much. They stayed indoors, and when they stayed indoors, what were they doing with their time? They were probably online most of the time. But it's not just a matter of being online, it's the fact that people weren't socializing. They weren't going out. There was no disruption in routine. And that's another big problem that these researchers found, is that when you live your life with no pattern disruptions, and you follow the same routine every single day, and every day is basically the same, that's what it becomes. It becomes the same, and it all blends together. The days blend together. The weeks blend together. The years blend together, and time passes you by without you even noticing it. Because, like I mentioned before, your mind is no longer holding on to any of these memories. So when we're constantly distracted and we're constantly being inundated with stress, fear, anxiety, and all the stuff that has our attention, then our mind loses the ability to build longer timelines, because there's no memory back there to back it up. And when I sat down and thought about this, it all became crystal clear. And I realized that that is exactly what's happening. And I'll use this snow behind me as an example, because every single news station and every single weather anchor was talking about how this was going to be an unprecedented snow. We were going to get 14 inches. I'm here in Kentucky. 14 inches in Kentucky. And that was going to be something that we have not seen in ages. That's what they were saying. And that caused people to go out to the store and basically strip the shelves. There was nothing left in the grocery store. Everybody bought all the propane. Gas stations were running out of gas. And people were just freaking out. They literally thought that this was going to snow us in and nobody would be able to get out and do anything. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, are these people serious? Have they genuinely lost their mind? Because I have pictures on my phone from last year, where we had probably a half inch of ice, and I have a measuring tape in the snow, and it was 22 inches of snow last year. I'm not talking about a decade ago. I'm talking about last year. And then 2 years before that, it was 33 inches of snow. But they were saying that this was going to be an unprecedented snow for Kentucky, 14 inches. And I thought people had lost their mind. But come to find out, this is mass amnesia. And this is what's happening to people. And if you think about this, you think about modern society, you're going to see this, because we're fed a lot of narratives today. And they're telling us a lot of stuff that if you have any kind of memory at all, you'll think back and you'll be like, this has already happened. This is not what they're saying it is, because I remember this, and this about this thing that they're saying. It's all false, but it's all based on this idea that we don't remember anything. And I think they kind of know now that we don't remember anything. I think they know that our minds aren't retaining memories. And I think they're capitalizing on that, and they're exploiting it. Because the more I think back about specifically the last 5 years and a lot of the stuff that we've been told, they are basically telling us stuff that, in my mind, there's no other explanation for other than the fact that they must think that we don't have a memory. Because if you do have a memory, you'll know that what they're telling you is a lie. But this is what happens when life is no longer full of novelty and there's no new places or faces, and every single day is basically the same. Because if you think about the way we live our lives now, people are traveling less, they're going out less, they're socializing less. There's hardly any variation in life, and we have replaced those things with digital things, with digital entertainment. And in many cases, we've replaced those things with fear, anxiety, isolation, stress, all of the stuff that basically disengages our prefrontal cortex. It disengages the hippocampus, and time just passes us by. And something else these researchers found is that stress doesn't just blur the past, it also compresses the future. It makes us lose sight of long-term vision. It causes us to feel older and believe that time is running out. And that is basically what a lot of people are experiencing right now. When you're constantly stressed and under a perpetual state of fight or flight, you no longer experience the present moment. Your mind becomes trapped in it. So as you can see, it's not time itself that has changed. It is our mind's ability to experience it. But the hopeful truth and the silver lining here is that now that we know what's causing this distortion of time, we know exactly what we can do to fix it. Because the brain slows time down when we experience novelty, when we experience adventure and emotion and meaning and deep thinking, critical thought. So instead of wrapping ourselves up in all this hustle and constantly inundating ourselves with all this technology, people are finding that it's not about that anymore. It's about doing less. It's about focusing more deeply on fewer things. It's about turning off all the constant notifications and all the distractions and drowning out the noise and grounding ourselves in the present moment. It's about changing our surroundings and doing things that allow us to create memorable experiences. And what these researchers have also found, and I too have found this to be true in my own personal life, is the moment that you slow down and you ground yourself in the present moment and you shut your mind off and just allow it to be free from distractions, free from all the noise, free from the notifications and all the stress and all the fear and all the stuff that has our attention. It gives you the ability and the time to create those memorable moments. And that is essentially living a life of intention. And living a life of intention is the way to slow time down.